Hey, thanks for coming. How many of you came to my talk yesterday on AI and content creation, just out of curiosity? All right, just a heads up, the first slide is going to repeat the first slide from yesterday, just in terms of some quick background information. But everything I want to talk about this afternoon talks specifically about how AI becomes very useful in the retail end of our industry. And as we know from a show like this, retail is crucial to this industry. So I want to focus specifically on AI deployment in the retail setting. So with that in mind, I just want to start with some quick background stuff that we need to be thinking about before we're thinking about AI deployment. And the first thing is we have to acknowledge that AI is not a single thing. We use this one umbrella term to talk about all kinds of different complex computing strategies, but what AI is in one context is very different from what AI is in another context. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, we're really talking about a computing process for analyzing large pieces of data faster than we could as people. So really AI is an analytical tool. It looks at large quantities of data. Now, November of 2022, OpenAI dropped ChatGPT on us and made us all aware of what we call generative AI. And what generative AI is another phase in that AI where the AI looks at a lot of data, analyzes it based on what you want from it, and then it generates what looks like new content. This is where, you can ask ChatGPT, write a catalog description of this jerkbait, and it will do so fairly horribly, but we can save that for content creation. Part of this also, what I want you to be aware of, is because AI is not this single thing, we're seeing about 1,000 new AI applications released every week. And those applications are usually very niche-based, answering specific kinds of questions, solving very specific kinds of problems. So that if you have an inventory issue that you're dealing with, there are platforms for that are very different from the platform that will write your catalog description or your marketing material. So the platforms are very context-specific. The other thing I want to point out, and particularly those of you who have played with ChatGPT or Gemini or some of the other free platforms, the free platforms are not your best bet. First of all, their data sets, their large language models are generally the internet, which is inherently problematic. They also can't access information newer than 2 years ago, so their data is usually older. That's why the proprietary platforms are becoming more and more prevalent, because you can control the data, you can use your own data, you can figure out when the data is coming from rather than this random source of the internet. I also want to point out that AI is not a magic box. You don't just tell it to do something and it does it and you end up with your problem solved. It's a very collaborative tool. It's something that we use to augment our own work, not to automate our own work. And so when we start thinking about AI, and particularly in the retail sector, don't assume it's just going to start running everything for you. That's not how it works. And frankly, we don't want to take the human element out of that. We always want the human expertise as the oversight in any kind of AI deployment. When we talk about AI, particularly when we're talking in a retail setting or any kind of industrial setting, what we're really talking about is improving efficiency and productivity. We're taking what you and your employees already do well and helping improve that efficiency. So we're thinking of it as kind of a collaborator, as an augmentation to what we're doing. Augmentation, excuse me, not automation. Think of it as a way to enhance what you're already successful at, okay? So let's talk then about where this fits in the retail end of things. So I want to give you, before I get to the exact retail things, I want to give you 10 things that I want you to think about as you're thinking about how you might deploy AI in your retail setting. And the first is, you have to focus on specific needs. You're not looking at AI as a big general thing across the entire enterprise. There are enterprise AI systems, and we can talk about that, but you really want to focus on specific needs. Figure out where your pain points are. What are the things that you're having a hard time doing? Keeping up with customer emails. I think I yelled too much at the product showcase last night. My throat's a little dry. Figure out, are you having snags in inventory management? Are you having shipping issues? Where are the problems you want solved that having these kinds of augmentations might be useful? So the first thing we want to do is look at specifics. Also, start small. Don't try to scale up to covering your entire business in the first shot. It will do a couple of things. One, if you try to do everything with AI right away, you're going to slow yourself down because a lot of the AI needs front-loaded data. You're going to have to spend some time setting things up. Start with the things where you have identified your bigger pain points. I really need to work on these kinds of customer interactions. I really need to have a better sense of how my supply chain efficiency is paying out. So we start small, and in the strategies that I design for companies, what we always do is we create a tiered approach that we're going to start with some small stuff, we're going to add it to the bigger complex stuff, and over time, we'll start to put AI throughout. Don't think that you're just going to download something and it's going to solve all your problems. So start small, scale up. That will also help create a level of comfort with your employees, those people who are actually going to engage using the AI as well. It's a learning curve. You want to start getting this, and it's also a familiarity thing. The more we work with it, the more we're okay working with it. Data is key to everything in AI. All AI requires three things: lots of data, good processing power, and human expertise. And so we're starting off by having to think of what is the data that I want from my company to be available. So things like consumer data, purchase history, preferences, when a customer tends to buy things, are they a seasonal buyer, are they a bulk buyer, all those kinds of data sets. I'll give you a quick analog. We have a wine and liquor store in Gainesville that for years, when you buy something, they scan it and you have a code and it puts it into your consumer, your customer profile. And so a year from now, I can go in and say, God, you know, we had that great red wine last Thanksgiving. Go, oh, it was this, this, and this. It's right here on the shelf. And so that kind of gathering customer data can become very, very helpful in terms of how then will you use that data. So you know that, you know, Thanksgiving's coming up. We should automatically have the system send Sid an email, hey, do you want another bottle of that cab before it runs out for Thanksgiving? So you can automate a lot of those kinds of direct consumer marketing based on the data that you're gathering. The more data you have, of course, the better optimal performance that your AI is going to provide also. Again, human expertise is what matters here. AI is incredibly powerful, but it's never going to replace human knowledge, particularly in the expertise of things like understanding local fishing conditions and what tackle to match. I get frustrated, I will admit, when I'm traveling and I go into a store that says they sell fishing tackle. Prime example, I fish Alaska a lot, and I went into a large box store that had a lot of tackle. And I'm looking at the tackle and I'm seeing all these fantastic bonefish lures that are still on the rack. And I asked the guy, why are you selling bonefish lures? That's just what the distributor gives us. Not the way to localize tackle sales. And AI can help with a lot of that and keep things up. But the human knowledge, the guy in that store needs to be able to say to the distributor, I'm never going to sell these. They do not work here. So we leverage the AI for data analysis and for some of the augmentation, but we never give it up. It's always the human who's got to run these things. The other thing here is, depending on what you're doing with AI, transparency is crucial. You want to make sure that you let your customers know we're using an AI system that does this automated marketing, or more importantly, that you're also letting your employees know what you're doing with AI. I find that to be a crucial part working with retail, or actually anybody in industry, because the moment we start introducing the concept, hey, we're going to bring some AI into the business, about half of your employees are going to go, oh crap, we're all going to lose our jobs. And so that transparency of we're doing this, here's how we're doing this. I'm not going to name the company, but literally 3 or 4 days ago, I met with the executive board of a company. The entire purpose was to let them know we're going to start talking about AI in this company. And there were a couple of moments of, oh God, what do we do? But once we got through, they're like, okay, we get with this. So transparency always up front. You also have to recognize that AI is an investment, and it's an upfront investment. Everything from buying the platforms, some of the platforms are very inexpensive, but others, depending on what you want to do, can be very expensive. A lot of companies use Amazon's AWS, which is a very powerful AI, but it's also a very expensive AI. I haven't looked at it lately, but my understanding is they base the prices they charge on you on your annual income and what you're bringing in as a business, and so they prorate it to what you can afford, which to me is a really risky kind of thing to do. But where the real front-loaded stuff is in training so that your employees know how to use the systems, and also making sure the data gets in there. So all that customer data has got to be loaded in before it becomes of use. So there are some investment both in time and money that have to take place. The other thing is, you don't have to do all this on your own. Most platforms have customer assistants that can help you get things set up. There are people like me working in all kinds of industries who will gladly charge you exuberant money, and I'm willing to do so myself, to help you get going. But there are experts out there in AI deployment, in retail, in industry, and I recommend that you take those people up on those kinds of things when you have. That will end up ultimately maximizing the efficiency of your deployment and also the efficiency of your use, because you'll have a solid training in that. And to be 100% honest about it, there is so much good information on using AI platforms on YouTube, on TikTok, that I have this sort of philosophy about YouTube, that if you want to learn how to do something, there's somebody out there who's already wanted to teach you how to do that something, so that you can always find a tutorial somewhere on how to do things. When we're talking about a business, we're always talking about security from the outset. One of the things that I push always is what I call security on development. A lot of AI systems talk about security, but it's something they do after they get the deployment. Okay, we've got it up, we've got it running, now let's talk about how we're going to protect the data. My approach has always been, from the moment we install a platform, we're looking at data security as primary, so that it's security on design throughout the entire process. We also want to focus on your user experiences. You don't want AI to become a barrier. We have all run into this frustration when we've encountered a chatbot on some kind of customer service, whether it's on the phone or on the web, and we all end up there. Agent, human, give me somebody to talk to, because I can't navigate what the AI is trying to direct, whether that's because the natural language processing isn't recognizing the words you're saying or whatever it happens to be. We always want to focus on that user experience and make sure that's the most important part of the interaction with our customers. However, at the same time, we also want the user experience to work with your employees. You don't want them to have that, oh God, I've got to figure out how to do this. You want it to be a smooth transition into the workflow of what you do for that AI to play out. So we talk a lot about how are we going to make sure we're focusing on user experience from the company end and also the customer end. And I also want to talk about, just as a thing to think about, generative AI's potential is incredible, it's growing, and as I talked about with content creation yesterday, these are opportunities to do all kinds of wonderful things like personalized marketing schemes, product descriptions. You can even do virtual fishing tours and virtual tackle use, all sorts of things that you can do to interact with your customers in terms of making new stuff. All right, so those are the things I want you thinking about in the background as we think about how we're going to deploy AI in retail settings. And the reason I do that is because part of what I'm trying to do in the talks that I give and the work that I do is sort of demythologize what the AI is, as somebody's just going to come in and put Alexa on your desk and now everything, get me a Pepsi, or it doesn't work that way. So I want you to have all this stuff that you're thinking about in the background as we think through this. So let's talk about 10 ways, as the title of the talk said, to use AI in the retail sector. That is an AI-generated image, and while it kind of looks like some interesting big trolling lures, you look close, they're not actually lures or anything like that, just kind of colorful picture. But, all right, so first of all, AI is fantastic for inventory management and supply chain optimization. You can load data that you have already on hand about where your demand fluctuations are coming from, whether they're seasonal, whether they're trending, whether they have to do with other content that's out there on social media, or even things that happen here at a show like this. You can have real-time analysis. So for instance, my guess is, as everybody here is hoping, that anybody who won a category award last night is anticipating that means that more retailers are going to purchase this product from the manufacturers, and we're going to increase sale in that thing. That contextual moment here last night when that Penn reel, saltwater reel won best in category, AI would immediately pick up on that, look at your inventory in saltwater reels and identify there's a very good prediction that this will elevate in desire for need and purchase. Would they take that data and marry it up against, well, how many electric reels do we actually sell, and is this really going to change? So you can use AI to do those kinds of predictive analyses of what's trending, what's happening, and where do we see the fluctuations. That's usually the case. I've seen some really interesting instances of this in just keeping stock of popular lures. And you can really use that AI analytic data. I talked yesterday a little bit about platforms like BuzzSumo or Google Alerts. So I will take BuzzSumo for the articles I write and say, what are people talking about in the red snapper world right now, which is always a big conversation. And the AI will list the top 5 things being talked about in red snapper. So if I adapted that and I said, in social media, what are the top 5 butterfly jigs for slow pitch jigging for red snapper that people are talking about on social media? Now I can take that, check it against my inventory, and anticipate that for our one-day red snapper, there's probably going to be an increase in people buying these slow pitch jigs. So now I can anticipate stock and inventory based on that. So there's a lot you can do with that kind of analysis, very, very robust data, and looking at what you've done and what's going on. That also can help with bottlenecks in supply chain, because you can anticipate when things are going to happen. The predictive analytics from AI, fantastic in terms of inventory management and supply chain optimization. We can also do a lot of hyper personalized recommendations, like the wine example I gave you, that if I have consistently around Thanksgiving bought the same cab, that the guys at the store can easily say, you know, he likes this cab, we just got this new cab from this new vineyard that we haven't had before and we haven't had in the store. Let's send him an email automatically that will recommend, we've got this new cab that marries up to your choices. So, you know, you keep buying chartreuse soft body jerk baits, we've got this new one from company so-and-so, and it can automate a lot of that hyper-personalized approach to marketing, so that if you've got customers with regular purchasing patterns, they can anticipate and sell to them as well. Lots of targeted marketing, particularly for those of you whose retail also occurs not only in brick and mortar, but online stores, where you know that the Florida bass guys are buying a particular lure matching the winter season versus what the Oklahoma guys are buying during the summer season. And so you can create demographic ads for where those are going and automate all that through AI. That also allows you to anticipate in-store promotions as well, targeted emails, all those kinds of things. So you can not only do the hyper-personalized, I know that Ed likes to buy these lures for redfish every year, but also, hey, we know that striper season's getting ready to kick off in the Northeast. I want to target the Northeast with some very specific regionalized striper rods, reels, lure ads there. Cull through automatically, cull through my database for who are the anglers that are fishing up there that have bought from us before. They're going to get that, and now the guy in Texas who has absolutely no interest in Northeast striper fishing isn't going to get that ad. And as we all know from our emails, when we get the ad for the product that has nothing to do with what we're doing, we just consider it junk mail. Now it becomes targeted marketing to those demographics and those regions as well. We also can develop intelligent search and product discovery. what this does, particularly on your web pages, but you can also do this on tablet in your store. Let's say you have a customer who comes in and says, hey, I'm really looking for a fast action bait casting rod. And you can say, yeah, here's what we've got, but the AI then in the pad or on the web page can say, if you're buying that, you want to look also at this line and this reel to match up with it, because our customer reviews say that the TFO rod does better with, I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to support any one particular brand, it's just easy. More clients or customers are fishing that with the Daiwa than they are with the Shimano. You might want to look at that, and then they prefer this Power Pro to that. So there's lots of ways to make those kinds of recommended intelligent search. But as I say that, I hope what you're recognizing also is, isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Isn't that our area of expertise? That's where the augmentation becomes important, because it's still our expertise to have that human conversation with them. But let's face it, we all don't have that immediate linking of everything in our catalog and everything on our shelves to be able to immediately do that. This gives you that augmentation to say, yeah, I did see a bad review of this or a good review of this for that. You might want to take a look at it. So it's really just sort of an augmentation of your professional knowledge when you're interacting with customer, whether online or off. Chatbots for customer service. I know that a lot of us get frustrated with these, but I got to tell you, and having built several chatbots, there are so many platforms now that make it very easy. It's not very high tech. What it is time consuming, because you have to create the training model so that it knows what words it's looking for, and you have to create what the responses are. You don't want it just inventing responses. So that what you're really doing is creating a catalog of what will the chatbot say back to my customer if the customer asks about this. And at that point, it does all kinds of dynamic things. Can you recommend an ice fishing rod? Yeah, we sell this, this, and this. We recommend this. Thank you, order, click, purchase, and then the chat box says, hey, you might want to look, if you're going to be ice fishing this year, you might want to look at these lures also. They've been very productive over the past several years. Or it can even ask questions like, hey, where are you ice fishing? Are you going to be up on Lake of the Woods? And if so, we're seeing walleye hitting these colors. So there's all sorts of dynamic ways that chatbot can interact. And think about just in that few seconds where I described that scenario, when you're doing that with however many customers online or in person, how much time that saves if that conversation gets automated and is enhanced by the AI, rather than you now spending 10 minutes talking through lures for this particular. Now you can go to the chat bot, have the interaction, and you've got 3 more customers you could deal with in that same time. So it really is kind of an efficiency thing. A lot of the estimates right now about efficiency and productivity say that over the next 2 years, across all industries, we're going to see a 40% increase in efficiency, which is pretty fantastic, but we have to balance what's the difference between me having that conversation with, at a very small fly shop in Montana, and my regular customer comes in, what do I gain by the personal conversation, versus if they just go to the web page and order a bunch of flies. So there's a lot of balance there in order to get that efficiency, and what do we want out of that efficiency also. We also know that we can use a lot of the data that we gather from our own businesses to make a lot of the decisions, to help influence our decisions. So when we start looking at trends and we look at competitor pricing and we can optimize pricing strategies, think about, I know, we all get price points, we get the MSRP from the manufacturers when they're giving product, we're buying product to sell in retail settings, and there are set prices, and those. How much time do you spend in your retail setting looking, what does Bass Pro have it, what does Cabela's have it, what does Gander have it, and we spend a lot of time, and you think about, particularly with those 3, how massive their catalogs are, how much time you spend going through to make sure you're aware of what your competitors are doing, when you can very easily set up an AI that real-time tracks what prices are available so that it can immediately tell you. And you've seen this, right? If you Google something, let's say you want to purchase a new spinnerbait, and you Google whatever spinnerbait it is, and it will come up with Amazon, it will come up with Academy or Dick's or whatever else. You know, you're already getting a version of that, but when you customize that to specifically the products you're interested in, and you're able to let that AI cover more than just what a Google search covers, now you've got real-time, accurate data about what your competitors are doing, which can affect then what you're doing on your show floor or what you're doing on your website. So you can also target that to very niche markets or big broad. So there's just so much you can do with that kind of analytic information. Again, personalized marketing content. You know, we all know when we get the marketing stuff in the email, oh, it's a bulk email, yay, Bass Pro's having a sale. But we also know that when we get an email that comes from a company that isn't just a sales pitch, but can say things like, how did you like using this chatterbait last year? Here's some new ones that we're offering, time to do this. So there's all kinds of, like I've said a couple of times now, personalized marketing that we can do. You can do that specifically in social media, you can do that in email. The output is endless. You can make videos for every single thing I've talked about as well, AI generated. So that kind of personalized marketing content always helps. Product descriptions, a fantastic thing to be able to do. How much time do you spend rewriting catalogs and web pages and describing? And I will tell you, and I had a conversation about this actually this morning with a very large company, that it was very curious as to why the catalog copy that they provide is not the catalog copy that this one online retailer is using. They're making up their own copy on the product. Well, it's their catalog. They're the ones selling the product. Do we have to adhere to our distributors' descriptions? And so there's already that dynamic question of, does the content just fall there? Well, if you're a manufacturer and you're providing the content for the description of the product, and you've got 10,000 different products that you're putting out, how much time is going into writing all that catalog copy? AI becomes a great collaborator in doing that. Let's face it. Everybody in this room who is in the fishing industry has read product description online and looked at that product description and thought, you gave me one sentence that says, great lure for catching fish, right? And whoever is doing that, we've seen ambiguous, we see bad copy edit on product description, right? But when you're looking for product online, how much of the detail are you reading? I'm reading every gear ratio. I'm reading every weight. And when I see product that's not there for, I think, why? Why are you not giving us it? The AI is perfect for doing all that, particularly once you create single source data files, that data I was talking about to front load with. Now I can say, I need this description here, this description for Amazon to meet theirs. I need to, whatever it happens to be. So using it to create these compelling product descriptions rather than blue. I literally saw a lure description that just said blue. So, those more dynamic kinds of descriptions. And, that carries on not just for catalog description, but even for signage on your floor, on your showroom floor, to be able to say and collaborate with the AI, we're having a sale. I want a sign that does more that says sale. I want a sign that talks about why this rod is good, why it's on sale, why we're moving them, why it's popular, without becoming text heavy. Now I want to use the AI to design the sign in a dynamic way. Now I don't have, how much more efficient is that, right? Video. We all know that video content has become so important. Whether it's showing product in action, whether it's product description, just think about how many, and I hate the word influencer, by the way, but how many influencers are doing unboxings and really showing you what a product is and walking you through it. Think about how AI not only can script those videos, but can actually create those videos, can help with the editing of those videos. AI and video editing is so fantastic. We talked a lot about this yesterday. But there are also AIs that can do really dynamic things for you with video. So there are platforms out there that I can take a description of a product, and I can put it into the AI, and with, again, not a magic box, I don't just push a button, but it will create an animation that, in a style that you choose for a very dynamic visual of how this product gets used. The one thing I'm looking into, and I get asked this particularly at ICAST, particularly from the manufacturers, we're looking into some platforms, I've got to figure these out, that will take R&D CAD images and transfer them into animation. We see those fantastic videos that companies like Shimano does that breaks out all the parts on the gear and brings it back and shows the drive and the drag. If you could take your R&D, your CAD drawings and automatically animate them into video descriptions of product, without it costing $50,000 plus to animate, without it taking weeks and weeks for an animator to get back to you, that you could just automate. Think about the dynamic kinds of videos we'd be making. I mean, we already are, but that also is a good way to interact with customers, because you can do a lot of angler education there, how this lure is being used. And of course, we all want eye candy, right? We want to see those fish pictures. We want to see the lure in action, the rod in action, and we want to be able to enhance those images to really draw out those kinds of things. And so the other thing I was thinking about, and I need to think more about this with the companies I'm working with, AI is a great way to create very specialized loyalty programs. A lot of the loyalty programs we see in retail are, wow, you've spent $100, we're going to give you a 15% off coupon for your next purchase over $200. Yeah, well, what happens when the AI is identifying, this is the 35th gold shiner spoon that this customer has bought in the last 6 months? What happens if we send an email and say, hey, we know you've been buying a lot of spoons, here are what we have listed for spoons, and we're going to give you 50% off if you buy from this list. Now you could do that to the person who's buying a bunch of spoons, the person who's buying in bulk bobbers or whatever it happens to be. Now the loyalty program isn't this broad umbrella thing, it is a very customer specific, they're paying attention to me. I guess from my cynical side, if we're surveilling our customers and watching them for security purposes to know what lures they're using, but think about how we can build new kinds of loyalty programs with that data analytics that we would never have time to do otherwise, right? Make sense? So those are 10 ways that I'm thinking about deploying AI in retail settings, both online and brick and mortar. I want to give you 3 bonus ideas. Things that have literally in the last week popped into my head. What happens if you combine some of these and you take that hyper-personalized recommendation and combined it with a very thorough chatbot? So now you send the automated message with the personalized recommendation with a link that opens a chatbot, and the chatbot says, hey, Dave, let's talk a little bit about your inshore bonefish jigs that you've been buying. I want to make a couple. Now I've got an interactive, and I can do it with a chatbot. I can do it with an avatar. And now all of a sudden I've got a very different kind of interaction between my customer. So one of the things I've been thinking about, and we'll start looking at how to build, depending on the size of your store, and when I think retail, I worked in a retail tackle store that was no bigger than this stage when I was a teenager, and I don't know how well this idea would go there, but depending on how large. What about a kiosk with screens, interactive screens that are basically your customer service introduction, so that a client can say, where do I find this? It's right there, or I want some more information. How many of you, when you put new windshield, who put your own windshield wiper blades on? How many of you put your own windshield wiper blades on? Or fix your own headlights, right? What's the first thing you do? Whether you go into Walmart or AutoZone or whatever, what's the first thing you do? You go to that big book, right? And you flip through until you find your make and model, and you scroll through and you realize, oh God, my readers are in the car and I can't see this print, right? And you scroll through and then you go and you pull the wipers and you go up and you realize, imagine doing that on a kiosk real quick, even voice activated. Hey, I'm looking for wipers for my 92 Chevy Ram. And the kiosk laughs at me and says, buy a new truck. But think about how that kind of customer interaction then changes what your employees are doing in terms of time. And how many of your employees ever get bogged down because the person doesn't know how to articulate the idea, what they're asking, or they don't know how to ask, or they just keep asking. So intelligence search, product discovery kiosks are something we're going to see. And then, of course, think about how we're doing in-store displays. My guess is most everybody who does in-store displays, whether it's sales signage or informational signage, or even just price codes and we're all doing that manually, right? We're deciding what should go on it. What happens if I say to it is an AI specifically designed for designing something, here's the information I need to convey to my audience, and it needs to be visible, it needs to include these logos, all that, and now it gives me 10 different options to select from in design. Now I can get the sign made, put it out, rather than, I don't like that one, can you redo it, send it back to the designer, your graphic artist, all that. So you can really create some engaging in-store designs, and it doesn't just have to be signage. It can be three-dimensional, it can be video. There are all sorts of ways to create all kinds of new ways for our customers to interact. So that's my bonus 3. Thank you all for listening to me ramble. I hope you all are having a great show. Do we have time for Q&A? I mean, got a couple of minutes for a couple of questions. If you have them, I'll be glad to take them. So thank you all. Yes, sir. Yeah, you have to use the mic. I've got all background noise, so hearing you from here.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
How can you increase the likelihood of being listed with AI? So for example, ChatGPT, if you just type something in it, it's going to give you something.
Right. So you said listed with? Discovered. Okay, so ChatGPT is a bad example, first of all, because ChatGPT is not going to give you specific brand, first of all. Also, ChatGPT doesn't access information newer than 2 years ago. What you're actually talking about is integrating search engine optimization with your AI. And one of the things I talked about yesterday was you can use AI in a way that will take, let's say you've got content about a product or your business, you can take that AI to do some analytics of what are the key terms, what are the hashtags, what are the things that get stuff noticed. Let the AI identify that, and then let the AI integrate it into the content that you're producing. That'll up your SEO, it will put you in the right hashtag columns, and basically what you're trying to do at that point, to be honest with you, you're no longer writing for humans at that point, you're writing for bots. And so letting the bot help you write for bot is going to be a much more efficient way of doing that. So, other questions? Got one more? Yeah. Because otherwise I'm going to go look at fishing tackle.
So I think ChatGPT is like the first thing that comes to people's minds
because
when we think
free.
about AI, right? What would be a good starting point to go towards to invest our money to kind of gain some traction, to start exploring, to start discovering the content that we need?
Right. So I'm going to answer that with 2 answers, but I'm going to give a preliminary. I'm not shilling for companies, so anything that I recommend is just because I've used it. Like I said, there are thousands of platforms, so I don't know them all. But the first thing, going back to that first idea, is asking yourself, what do I want to use it for? Because if you want to use it for inventory stuff, then the content creation stuff like ChatGPT and Gemini and Jasper and that's not what you want. So the first thing is identify what you want to do. If you're doing content creation, my recommendation in this industry is to look at Jasper. It's not expensive, it's broad-based, it's got an easy learning curve, and a lot of media folks are using it. Again, I have no relationship with them. I pay them a subscription to use it, but that's just one of the ones I found very useful. Really and of course the other answer, self-serving, is you contact Flying Fish AI and we can develop a strategy, right? But really what it is asking yourself, and I do this in a formal way, it's what we call an artificial intelligence readiness survey. It's really thinking, where in my business do I think AI is going to help me, and thinking through that. Now, very easily, Google, I need an AI platform that will do X. And now start just going through, and I recommend, of course, everybody who's, platform pulls up, I also recommend going to some of the tech journals that do reviews, like what are the top 10 platforms for video manipulation or whatever. Start reading the reviews also. That's the fundamental way in. So, all right, this is the last session, right? Yep. Thank you all very much. I hope you have a great rest of the show. If you want to talk more about it, that is my contact information. Please feel free to get in touch with me, and go have more iCast.